So we're still on the Tuesday phase of the sales call at the moment. So I wanted to do a section for you on listening skills, because there's no point asking great questions if you don't listen carefully to the responses, because it's the responses that are the actual needs that we're going to sell to. So this is, we've asked these great questions, and now we're going to hear what they say so that we can then move to the next phase of the call, which is the pitching, which is where we present the features and benefits of our product linked to the things we discover on the Tuesday call after all our clever questions. So let's just have a think about listening. Let's have a think about how we can become better listeners. Because, let's face it, many of us aren't great at listening to other people. A brilliant quote here from Epictetus, Greek philosopher, I think it's Epictetus, who said we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. So I've heard it said in another form as well, which is, 2 ears, 1 mouth, use them in that proportion when selling. Very, very true. It's very common as a salesperson to speak more than your customer. And as a rule of thumb, if you find you are speaking much more than your customer, they're probably sat there bored to tears, in truth. One interesting thing is, I don't know about you, but I follow lots of people on Instagram, and there's lots of pictures like this that, motivational quotes and everything, attributed to all sorts of people. And I saw this: you should listen more when you talk, Joey Essex. I just thought it was quite amusing because clearly it was Epictetus. So let's think about active listening. So actual active listening. This is listening whereby we're listening for the information to get a better understanding of our customers, but we then need to be able to use the information we have listened to do something. So it's active listening is what we want to do. So it also demonstrates you're fully listening to your customer when your customer's speaking. So by demonstrating that you are understanding, it shows them you're interested. Okay, so one thing for you, a really good thing for you to practice when you're listening to a customer speak, or you're listening to anybody, if you're finding it quite difficult to raise your energy levels, you shouldn't really, you should try and make sure you're in the right frame of mind before you even go into a sales call. But sometimes it can be difficult to listen to the answers, especially if you are dealing with a customer with a different personality style than you, and as a result, you're having to really motivate yourself to listen carefully. Try the sprinter pose. Sprinter pose is where you lean forward slightly, your body language is inclined towards that person, maybe even incline your ear towards that person, and you'll find by moving forward, by positioning your body forwards like this, whether you're sat down or stood up a little bit, you will find it's easier to tune in and listen. You will look more like you are listening as well. So let's have a look at some tips. Try not to think about what you're going to say next until the other person has stopped speaking. It's so common. I think us men are famed for doing this when we're talking to each other. It's quite funny when you see 2 people doing it when there's a conversation where both men are thinking about the next anecdote they're about to tell the other one, the anecdote that's going to top the one that's just come before. And as a result, they're not listening to each other. It's not really a conversation. It is just one person telling an anecdote whilst the other person thinks of their anecdote. And that really isn't what we're talking about here. So don't do that. Try not to think about what you're going to say until they've stopped speaking. Don't be afraid of silence. So once someone stops speaking and you've listened carefully to what they've said, it sometimes takes a moment or two to actually digest what's been said. And it goes the other way as well with your customer. So if they're having a moment of silence, just let the silence hang for a moment. And whatever you do, don't start speaking until you understand and you've actually thought about what you're going to say next. It makes you look much more intelligent, and it also makes you look like you appreciate the value of what's just been said. But don't stare at your customer, okay? I've had lots of people do this. They go on a course on body language. They go on a course on active listening. And as a result, they do a thing which is, I've heard lots of people say it to me, that to get better at making good eye contact with somebody, that you stare at the bridge of the nose. So you don't stare into their eyes, you stare at the bridge of the nose, and it means you hold the person's gaze. However, a lot of people find it quite aggressive. It's something that in nature that animals do when they're ready to fight. They fix their gaze upon the person. They stare intently because they're looking at all the cues and body language and everything as to whether the thing's going to attack. And you don't really want to give that impression to your customer. A good amount of eye contact is important. You need to make a normal amount of eye contact. You need to be able to meet someone's gaze, show them you're confident, and keep your body language upright. But what you don't want to do is freak the person out by staring at them. It's very uncomfortable. I don't like it when people do it. I'm sure you don't like it when people. So just be careful of that. Demonstrate you understand. So something that someone noticed about me recently, I was in a foreign country visiting some customers, and we were having a conversation. A group of us were having a conversation with a customer who was quite boring, to be honest, really quite boring. And it was quite a long conversation. We were waiting for something to happen, so it was quite laborious. And the three other people with me didn't really want to engage in this conversation, and I could tell that the customer was finding it quite rude, that they weren't really engaging. So subconsciously, I didn't realize I was doing it, and the other three who were with me afterwards said it amused them. Was I was nodding and gesturing a lot to show understanding and demonstrating an agreeable attitude to this customer who I was trying to make up for the fact I was picking up on the social cues that he wasn't happy that the other three people with me weren't really tuned into what he was saying. He was quite a senior person as well. He was actually head of a hospital. He was actually the chief. So I think he expected us to listen to him. So there was me nodding along and gesturing my agreement and agreeable attitude, and they found it quite funny. And I was just saying to them, well, that's whether I was doing it subconsciously, but that's something that you need to learn to do as well, because it was quite rude. If you don't show any agreement, you don't nod or gesture or give them any clues that you're actually engaged in that conversation, it's quite rude. Okay. And repeat back the keywords using the key points. The key point using the same words. So if you hear a customer is using a certain pattern of speech and certain words quite regularly, then don't parrot them, but use them. Rephrase them. We're going to come on to objection handling. Just rephrase, but actually use the same words that you've heard from them, and you will be amazed at how, when you start using the same words that the customers just used themselves, how they suddenly become very responsive to you. So we're going to listen. We need to listen for needs as well. So there's no point asking a question and making assumptions and selling. We actually need to be able to continue and carry out our flowchart of questioning. We need to be able to ascertain whether we've heard the actual urgent need. So have we heard that they have something they want to change in the future that you can solve? So what do we do with that? So we need to actually listen. So I've put a load down here. I won't go through each one on its own. I'll leave them up on the screen for you for a little bit. But these are just an example of some questions which some of them are expressing a dissatisfaction with something. So present situation, past situation. And some of them are actually questions saying, I want to do something now. I want to do something in the future. So if you were selling financial products, for example, and you heard your customer say, I want to reduce my accounting costs because it's blah, 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 and they can continue. You can mentally make a tick. You can suddenly go, right, well, we have a product or a package that is going to help you reduce your accounting costs. So therefore, you know straight away that you are in the position then to start selling in a moment. However, if you hear something like, I found that especially challenging, you don't know what to sell yet. All you know is that customer is dissatisfied with the situation. They haven't expressed to you what they want specifically to change. All they've done is express that they found something challenging. So we're still in the present and the past questioning phase of the flowchart. We still need to explore that. So what did you find particularly challenging about that situation? Why was it challenging? What would you like to change in the future to make sure that doesn't happen again? So we can turn that into a future question. So we need to listen carefully. And the thing we don't want to do is start selling and pitching too early before we've really explored something until it's become an actual explicit desire to change something. So let's just summarize quickly on the listening section. The customer should do the majority of the talking in the interview phase of the call. In fact, if you, as a rule of thumb, in your sales calls, your customers should do the majority of the talking. Ask questions in a logical order, so one at a time. Demonstrate your listening. Gesture, nod, show agreement, and listen carefully for the explicit needs that you can actually sell something to. Don't start selling too early. It's very, very common when you're new to sales is you hear a problem, you think, great, I was told on my training that I want to be solving problems, therefore it's time to sell. Explore it until it's something you can definitely solve. You have a product that is obvious and that you can move on to the next phase in the process is pitching, because we now know we've listened carefully and we're now in a position to say, right, great, I understand exactly what you're looking for and I am now going to present to you the solution to your problem.